This is Gemara Avodah Zarah Daf Mem Gimel, and we're holding on Mem Beis and Beis. Pulled up a little bit short. We're about 18 lines on the wide lines. First one line is Lenoi Balma, and on the Indian, a related din says the Gemara, Man Gid Rav Shishas Chumra Misnais. Rav Shishas would collect different chumrais, different difficult mishnayos, braisos, vitani, and teach them. And one of them was Kol Hamazos Mutarich Chosmi Mazel Chamulavana. All muzalais you're allowed to create pictures of, all celestial beings, except for the mazel of the sun and the moon. Similarly, and all faces are permissible. You're allowed to create chotz mi parts of adam. Cholatzurais mutarais. All figures are allowed. Chotz meitzuras darkoin, the figure of a dragon. Says the Gemara, as always, let's go piece by piece in this price. Amar Markol Mazal's mutaras chotz mi mazal cham olavana. Hach mayaskin ani lema ba'iseh. If we're talking about you make the actual pictures, nothing's mutter. You can't create such a thing. She says like you can't create something similar to that which serves me. What's referred to b'moitza? The case is that we're dealing with you found such an object, and the question is, are you allowed to keep it and benefit from it? And we're saying, yeah. If you're going to tell me if the home the Yam Melech, in the case of finding, the middle case said, and even might say parts of Adam if you found it, then why would parts of Adam even be Yasser? But Suras Darkoinin, the clear implication is only a dragon. Moving on to the first white line. However, in parts of Adam Loi, Elab Shita Baisa, you created them. Ravuna, Breder of Yeshua, says the Gemara. And Iba Oise, Maseifa, Kolatchus Mutaras Chosmi with Suras Darkon. Viba Oisa, Suras Darkon, Yasser, anyone is taking actually the figure of a dragon, Vaksev, Losas de Tile Chazav Elizov. Rather, says the Gemara as we turn over to today's Daf Mem Gimel and Aleph, Hani in, says the Gemara. However, Suras Darkoin, Loi, only these, but not the figure of a Darkoin, that cannot be allowed. Suras Darkoin, Loi, says the Gemara. Therefore, so the Gemara concedes that must be correct. El Pshita on the top line of Mem Gimel and Aleph. What must the case be talking about? They might say that the case must be reported that you found these items that has these pictures on it, and the question is benefiting from that, and the case is that yes, you're allowed to. If you found them and they had pictures of the moon, etc. Says excuse me. Says the Gemara, based on the way we're learning this, Reisha of Seva ben Maitzi. Siyasa be'aiseh, comes out that the Reisha and the Sefer are one topic in the Mishnah, and the Mitziyasa is a totally different topic. Rava explains, no, Kula ben Maitzi, Mitziyasa. And the middle case says the Gemara, Rav Yehudi, the Tanya, Rav Yehuda Maisif, Rav Yehuda adds on after Musminika. Rav Yehuda adds on that also you're not allowed to make a likeness of a nursing woman, Bisar Apis and Atzar Apis. Explains the Gemara why these two. On, you're not allowed to make a nursing woman. Why? Because they would. That was a form of Avodah Zarah. Because they said Chava nursed Kilo the whole world. Sarapis Al Shem Yosef Shesaru Mapis. It's called Adam Kulai, who's a prince, and he calmed down the entire world. Who did not get Giriva? It says the Gemara, the Sarapis is only not allowed if the Sarapis is holding something. The Kakayel and is measuring. V'hidinakta Pain v'kaminika. In the first case, a nursing woman is aser when she's holding a child and nursing it. So two additional cases that are also fall into this category that they're aser to be created. So Tana Rabbanan, we're about 12 lines down at the two dots. Says the Gemara, what was the case? What is this dragon that we said you're not allowed to make the tzura of it? Pirush, Rav Shimon Elazar explained, Keshiesh Lai Tzitzin Bein Parakov. It has fins between its vertebrae. Amachli Ravasi Bein Pir Tzitzavar, between the vertebrae of the neck. Amar Rav Chama, Amar Rav Barachana, Rav Yeshua ben Levi, Pamachas. Hayisi Mahalech, Achar Rav Elazar, Akfar Berivi B'derech. I was walking behind him on the road. Umatzi Sham Tabas. We found the ring. Va'aleh Otsuras Darkoin. And on the ring, there was a figure of a dragon. Umatzi of Yilchavin Katan. And he saw a child who was of Avodah Zarah. V'lamer like klum. He didn't say anything. Matza akum gadol. He found Avodah Zarah was a god of Amar Lai. And he said to him, Batla, nullify it, v'loi Batla. Sat starai. Rav Lazar hit him, ubitzlai, and he was mevatel it. So an interesting story, which the Gemara continues to explain. What do we learn from this story? Shema mina telas. Shema mina, number one, akum mevatel v'zchav, inshallah, akum mevatel zon of the Zara. And v'shal chaveira, ushma mina yodei b'tev shal akum. Number two, what do we learn? We learn that one knows the nature of the Avodah Chavim, Mishamshah Mevatel, and it's Mishamshah, the accessories are allowed to nullify it. And number three, Vishaini Idea, someone does not know, V'tim Akum Mishamshah, Eina Mevatel. Shema Mina, Akum Mevatel, Baal Karchi, you could force a guy to Mevatel. We learn these all from the stories in which he forced him, he hit him, in order to mevatel the Avodah Zarah. Says the Gemara, Mekadev Abba Rabbi Chanina. Rabbi Chanina was surprised when he heard this story, and he says, V'les Leiler of Lazar Kfar Beribi. He does not hold of the following Haditnan, that which we learned in a Braisa. Hamatzel min ha'ariyah min ha'daiva min ha'nemer min ha'gayos. If someone saves something from a lion, a beer, a leopard, a troop, min ha'nahar, or from a river, mizutei shel yam, an overflowing river, mizutei shel nahar. Min ha'nahar mizutei shel yam, mushalisa shel nahar, from the surge of a flooding river. V'ha'moitzi b'srati plati ha'gadol, or if you find something in a large thoroughfare. What's the halacha in all these cases? U'mekol makash ramasi and sham. Anytime there's a lot of people over there, Hareilu Shalah, you're allowed to keep these items. And why? Sha'abailim misyayishin behem. The reason is because the owner is miyayish when he loses such a thing in such a place. So says the Gemara, what was the case that he found the ring? And the ring was on a road. What does that mean? That means the owner was clearly miyayish. If that's true, then the item should on its own be considered batal. So why do you have to have the guy be mevatal it? Amar Abaye nehedim mina miyayish. Very good. He's miyayish over owning it. Miyaser miyayish. Is he miyayish from being aser? Meaning the ownership shabai, he knows he's never going to get it back. It doesn't mean that he never nullified it to remove the status of Isser. Meimer Amar, could be, what he thought to himself, that maybe a guy is going to find my ring, miflach balachla, and if the guy finds it, he's going to worship it, so why should I mevatel it? It's expensive, so he's going to sell it, and he will worship it. And that's the reason why we don't assume that he was mevatel this ring when he lost it, and therefore he had to, Rav Ribi had to make the guy be mevatel it. Says the Gemara, 5 lines from the wide lines, Sinan Hassam, we learned in the Mishnah. Timos Suras Lavana Yisrael Rav Gamliel. Rav Gamliel famously had pictures of the moon, Ba'aliyasa in his attic, B'tavla, B'kaisel, on a tabla, on a tablet, and on the wall. Why? Shaben Mares, Yaitis, he would show the Yaitis when they came to Mekadesh, the new moon, Vaimer Lehem, and he would say, Kizarisam, like Kizarisam, what exactly do you see? So this was a famous thing that Rav Gamliel had to help in the aid of Kiddush HaChodesh. But says the Gemara, Mishari, was he allowed to do this? V'aksev lo sasun iti, lo sasun kidemos shamshi, not allowed to make anything similar to that which serves me. I'm a shamshin lafanai, and the moon is certainly in that category. Amar Abaye, lo yasser atayra, the Torah only made aser, ella shamoshin shavlasa is kemaisan. The shamashim, those who serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, only that you can actually replicate them. However, a moon, of course, you can't actually create. Kedetananya, lo yasa adam beis tamnes heichal aksadra, tamnes ulam chatzer, tamnes azara shulchan. One is not able to make a form of the heichal, a pavilion in the form of the ulam of the Beis Hamikdash. Chatzer, you're not able to make a courtyard. Tamnes azara, similar to the azara in the Beis Hamikdash. Shulchan you cannot make. Tamnes shulchan. Minaira you cannot make. Tamnes minaira. Avol, however, who oisa shel hey v'shel vav v'shel ches, you're allowed to make a minaira of 5, 6, or 8 branches. Just the shel zayin lo yasem of 7 you cannot make. Why not? Because that's similar to the Beis Hamikdash. Filu shel shar minim atachais, even other types of metals, even if it's not gold. Rav Yisrael Yehuda, I mean, no, Avshal Eitz Liyas, can't even make it of wood, as, believe it or not, the menorah is allowed to be made of other materials. Lechatchila is gold, and actually the times of the Chashmonayim, they made it out of wood. So Amrulai, the Chum said, there is Rav Yehuda, Misham Rayav and the Chashmonayim, Shvudin Shabar Zalaya, really was made out of iron. The Chayfin Beis was covered with wood. Shirai, when they had money, they made of silver. So says the Gemara, you're not actually able to make it of any material. So says that's the end of the kasha. So ask the Gemara, what do we see? Seemingly the moon is not an issue because you can't actually create a moon. Says the Gemara, 2 lines to the bottom, Shamash Shev Shalasas Kemaisan. Mi Shari, your whole premise that a Shamosh, a server of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that is not similar, you're allowed to make. But Tanya, that you're not able to actually create. We see clearly you're not allowed to. Amar Abaye explains Abaye as we turn over to Mem Kilomid Beis. The Torah only asks her in making similar to the malachim of that are in Shemayim that have 4 faces. Says the Gemara, if this is true, parts of Adam lechudei tishtri. If that is true, if the only thing that's aser is making a form of malach that is similar to the dalid panim, the 4-faced partsufim that are in Shemayim, so then you should be able to make the figure of a person. Alama Tanya, but what do we learn in a brayse? I call partsufais mutarais chutz. Mi parts of Adam, you're not allowed to make a person's face. So Amar Rav Yehuda, B'reit Rav Yeshua. Rav Yeshua said, "Mi perki Rav Yeshua Shemieli." From the shiurim of Rav Yeshua, I learned 6 lines from the tablos asin the tilos asin. Oh, you see, you're not allowed to make me. Says the Kadosh Baruch Hu al Shari Shamashim is going to be shari. It's going to be mutter. But really, Vishari Shamashim, Mishari Vatani Losasin, Tilos Asin, Kedush Shamashi, Amashar Shalfani B'Maraim. The memravs we've been quoting many times, you seemingly cannot make anything similar. Kigoin, for example, Afanim Visarim Vachayos HaKodesh, or Malachi Asharis, all the different entities that are in Shamayim. So how could Rav Gamliel, circling back around, have these different pictures of the moon that he utilized? Amar Abaye L'Asra L'Shamoshin Shemadar El Yoin. Says Abaye, you know what's Aser? The servants that are in the higher abode in Shamayim. Says the Gemara, so you're differentiating which servants of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which of the celestial beings. Really? V'shamara atachton mishari v'atanya shever shamayim the rabbis chamo levana kochavim azolos mimal the word of mimal the rabbis v'lachei asharis. So says the Gemara, seemingly all items in heaven are not allowed. Says the Gemara, kitanya yi la'ivdem, that means actually worshiping them, not making the picture. Wait, ila'ivdem afilu shel katan nami. If it's all about serving them, even a small worm is not allowed. Answers the Gemara, ein hachanami, you're right. U'miseifa dikra nafka. We learn from the end of the pasuk, Titania asher ba'aris the rabbis yamim v'naharais harim ukvais mitachas the rabbi shel katan. Any form of creature is not allowed to be served as Avodah Zarah, any intermediary to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So says the Gemara, Vasiya Gredasa Mishari, is just making them usher, just creating these items. V'atanya, 5 lines to the white lines, Osasin Itila, Osasin Kidmush, Amashi, Amshem Lefanim B'marayin, Kigoyin Cham Lefanim Kacham Mazolis. So says the Gemara, what does the Brisa seemingly say? That creating them is usher. So how could Rav Gamliel create the moon? Shiny Rav Gamliel, the Acherim Asulai. Rav Gamliel didn't make them himself. Other people made it for him, and that's why it's not a problem. Rav Yehuda Asulai. It was Rav Yehuda, V'amlo Shmuel, Rav Yehuda Shinna Sharban. Same Eine Didan, you should blind your eyes. How are you able to do these things? Hassam says the Gemara b'chaisamai b'ileit. It was some of a case, a chaisam, a signet ring that sticks out. And the reason why it was aser was a chshad, you're actually serving the Avodah Zarah. The Tani tabash chaisma b'ileit. Aser lanicha, forget about making it, you're not even allowed to wear it. Umotar lachtam b'chaitam shakuav, the image is sunken in. And motar lanicha, let it put it on v'aser lachtam ba. Says the Gemara, so that's the chalik. But wait, are we really concerned that people are going to suspect you being Avodah Zarah? But there was a shul of Shafi Yasif in Ardai. On the 4th white line, Dokmi Bey and Darta, they had a statue of the king. And Shmuel and Levi would go and daven there. They weren't afraid that people were going to think they're actually davening to the statue. Says Rabbim Shiny to a lot of people. I Rav Gamliel di Yachad Kim de Neshaya Ave Shchichi Rabin Gave. Says the Gemara, no, since he was the Nasi, Kim the Nasihu, many people were by him, so similar to case of Rabbim. By Sema, the Prakim Havai, they weren't full pictures of the moons, they were interlinking parts, and that's when it's going to be mutter. By Sema, Leislami Shiny only did it to teach. The Tani Loslam Lasais, the Lamed Lahavin Lahairais, a special heter similar to what we saw about saying the Shem Hashem. There's a heter when it comes to teach. And we wrap up today's share quoting the final sheet of the Mishnah Rashbag Oimer V'chulu. Ezu Hei Mechubadim. Rishim Gamliel said, if they're engraved on a mechubadik keli, then it's aser. So what is mechubad v'enim b'zuyina? What is lowly? Amaram mechubadim l'malam min hamayim v'zal l'matim min hamayim. Depends when, if it's above water level or below water level. Shmuel amar elim v'adzin oisan, those are lowly. Elehein mechubadim, ele'elu mechubadim shal ashirim v'al nizamim. If it's made on bracelets and nose rings, v'al tabois on regular rings. Tani k'vos said Shmuel araya mechubadim is what shal ashirim v'al nizamim al tabois. Mevuzen and shalayeris al kum kimasim al mechami chamim, pots, kettles, and water warmers. Val shal asadina val matvichos, sheets and towels. So 2 different sheetas. What's called a mechubadik, an honorable keli that you're not allowed to make these pictures on it, like sheetas Rishim Gamliel. And we'll pick it up. Siyata d'Shmaya for the new Mishnah in Mirza Hashem.